We all know the saying, the book is always better than the movie. But is that actually true? No. No, it's not. Sometimes the movies are able to condense the story in just the right way to make it more effective. Sometimes actually seeing the visuals can make the experience even more thrilling or immersive, and sometimes changes to plot and characters can simply be better choices. So don't take this as me saying that these books I'm about to mention are bad. I would say most of the books here are worth your attention. There are even a few of my personal favorites on this list, but the film adaptations are better. So here are 10 movies that are better than the books they're based on. Yep, I'm going to start strong by opening with the king of horror. Listen, don't come for me guys, I'm a Stephen King fan myself. But let's be real, just like there are quite a few films out there that did not do King's work justice, there are also some that have improved on the original work, like Brian De Palma's Carrie. The original is King's first published novel, which is very impressive, but as famous and fascinating as the book is, De Palma's adaptation became one of the greatest horror classics and has been inspiring filmmakers for decades. This dark coming-of-age story of a repressed teenager with telekinetic powers raised by an extremely religious mother turns the high school experience into a real nightmare scenario. The movie sticks reasonably close to the original plot and, more importantly, to the themes of the novel, such as bullying, feeling like the odd one out, the struggles of adolescence in general, and the need to gain control of your life and define yourself as a person. But the two big changes that really make the film adaptation shine are the confrontation between Carrie and her mother, as well as the movie's ending, which delivers a stronger punch than the book. For the sake of not spoiling the movie, if you somehow haven't seen it yet, I am not going to go into the details, but let's just say that even King himself was shocked and impressed by De Palma's ending. The other Stephen King adaptation that I just could not make this list without is The Shawshank Redemption. This 1994 masterpiece drama, written and directed by Frank Darabont, which is widely considered to be one of the best films ever made, is based on King's novella Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. It's the story of Andy Dufresne, who is given a life sentence for a double murder of his wife and her lover, despite his claims of innocence. To be fair, the two are very similar, and while King's novella is great, the film tweaks a few things, making stronger choices that give it an edge over the original work. There are secondary characters who are given more attention, which adds more depth to the story. There are also a few changes made to the fates of those characters, which ended up being very memorable parts of the film, and overall, the adaptation finds the time to complete character arcs in a more satisfying way than the novella. And let's not forget the cinematography by the legendary Roger Deakins, the wonderful score by Thomas Newman, and the two iconic lead performances by Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. Seeing the two of them bring the characters to life definitely added a lot to the experience. The Shawshank Redemption more than deserves its status as a timeless classic. And now it's time to turn to sci-fi because we need to talk about The Martian, which was adapted from Andy Weir's best-selling novel and a big favorite for sci-fi readers, myself included. When it comes to The Martian, its main success is in absolutely nailing the tone of the story and the casting of the protagonist, Mark Watney, played by Matt Damon. After an astronaut is accidentally left behind on Mars, he has to not only figure out a way to communicate with NASA, but also survive long enough to give them the chance to work out how they can even attempt to rescue him. Out of everything on this list, The Martian is the adaptation that's the closest to its source material. Outside of some specifics and extra challenges here and there, the film adaptation follows the original novel pretty faithfully. So why is the movie better? Well, it's simply tighter and more thrilling. The main complaint the readers had about The Martian is that the detailed detailed science of it all often felt overwhelming. Ridley Scott presents the viewers with a condensed version of the events. There still are plenty of scientific details in there, but the pacing and the thrill factor are where the movie steps things up, making it an edge-of-your-seat adventure full of humor, personality, and survival. And while you're contemplating whether or not you could potentially have the skills to survive on Mars on your own, let me introduce you to the awesome sponsor of today's video, Skillshare, because it is never too late to learn and expand your horizons. Whether you're looking to pick up a new hobby, infuse your work with more creativity, get started on something you've always wanted to learn, or simply improve your daily life, Skillshare has a class for you. This online learning community has thousands of inspiring classes for you to explore and get started on whatever is next in your personal growth journey, with new classes added every week, so you will always have something new to discover. I've personally been a member for over a year now, and I love it. My most recent favorite is Thomas Frank's Productivity for Creatives, a class that really helped me improve my mindset and organize my creative process so I can bring more of my ideas to your screens. The first 1,000 people to use my link below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, and I just know it's going to make you fall in love with learning. Join Skillshare today and let your curiosity lead the way. And thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now, one of my more recent discoveries in the realm of sci-fi classics is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Jack Finney's brilliant 1955 novel titled simply The Body Snatchers has been adapted into 4 different films, but the one I'm referring to is Philip Kaufman's 1978 version. The story is about a small group of people who start realizing that everyone around them is being replaced by cold, emotionless copies as aliens are replicating humans in their sleep, taking over their minds and bodies. Both the novel and the film are among my personal sci-fi favorites, and while I do love Jack Finney's original work, you can't deny that it's really starting to show its age at this point, particularly when it comes to character interactions and politics, as the novel is an allegory for the 50s paranoia and fear of communist infiltration in the US. When it comes to the film, Kaufman steps away from the political undertones and instead turns to full-on sci-fi horror. It's an adaptation that feels grittier and darker than the book, and while it still has some social commentary, it's a lot more interested in the psychological horror of the original concept. In fact, the movie takes quite a few liberties when it comes to the plot compared to the novel, which actually really plays in its favor. Plus, I can guarantee that you will forever be haunted by the movie's ending. Okay, when it comes to Call Me By Your Name, I have to admit, if I were to choose my least favorite book on this list, this would be it. I read the book after watching the film, and I can confidently say that the adaptation is one of the biggest upgrades to the source material I have ever seen. The movie is a beautiful story of first love and coming of age that transports you into summer in Italy in the 1980s. It manages to capture the feeling of young romance, it wraps you in its mood and atmosphere, it's warm and seductive, it's often poetic, and even delivers some genuine life wisdom along the way. Unfortunately, this is not something you get from the novel, which I found to be incredibly repetitive. While there is some very beautiful writing in the book, the biggest issue is that, for the most part, it keeps the reader in Elio's head. As a boy in his late teens, filled with longing and romantic obsession, all Elio thinks about is the object of his desire, which is what makes his perspective so repetitive and one-dimensional. The film adaptation does so much more, not only with the atmosphere, but also with Elio himself and the other characters. It's simply a more developed and better told story, and it's a film that will leave you reminiscing about that first time you thought you were in love. Now, the newest addition to this list is Guillermo del Toro's Nightmare Alley, a gorgeous film noir and one of my favorite movies of 2021. Based on the 1946 novel under the same name, the movie is about Stan, an ambitious man who gets hired at a carnival and ends up learning how to be a mentalist as he embarks on his relentless pursuit of wealth and success. It's a haunting story of pride, arrogance, and blind ambition, and Del Toro's signature style is perfect for it. As you can imagine, the novel feels quite dated at this point, particularly when it comes to how a lot of the characters are presented, and it actually gets pretty melodramatic at times. The film, on the other hand, really brings out the most interesting aspects of the book while trimming the unnecessary details and making each character stand out, no matter how big or small their part is. It stays true to the core and structure of the original novel, while the changes make the more dramatic and ominous aspects of the story stand out. The result is a visually stunning, atmospheric film that masterfully explores some of the darkest corners of humanity. It's seductive, sinister, twisted, mysterious, and sexy, just the way a great neo-noir drama should be. I don't know about you, but until a few years ago, I had no idea that Psycho was even based on a novel. I guess I wasn't paying attention to the opening credits. But Robert Bloch's Psycho was published in 1959, just 1 year before Alfred Hitchcock turned it into his iconic classic horror film. While the murder mystery itself is pretty much the same when you compare the plot of the book to the movie, it's the way it's told that really makes a difference, where the novel really focuses on the relationships between the characters, paying most of the attention to Norman Bates and his mother. The movie really plays up the mystery angle of the story, which makes it more thrilling to follow and the reveal more unexpected. The other thing is that Norman is a lot less likable or enigmatic of a character in the book compared to the film, which adds to the mysterious nature of the adaptation. Let's not forget that Hitchcock is known as the master of suspense for a reason, and while the book offers fascinating psychological insight into the characters, the movie's ability to still put the viewer at the edge of their seat all these years later, as well as inspiring an entire subgenre of horror, easily puts it above the original novel. Of course, I could not make this list without talking about Gone Girl, one of my all-time favorites from David Fincher. Gillian Flynn's 2012 novel took the world by storm and took the missing woman mystery subgenre to new heights. A wife disappears, her husband looks increasingly more suspicious, and the media circus escalates as a trail of clues, personal details, and marriage problems gets revealed. The novel is gripping and undeniably iconic, but as the author got a second stab at the story when she got to write the screenplay for the film, the adaptation is simply more polished. David Fincher's impeccable directing style, the film's striking imagery, the spot-on cast, and subtle changes that ended up making all of the difference, these things make Gone Girl an excellent mystery film, one of the best films within the genre, and one that ever so slightly surpasses the source material. I will say though, the one issue I had with the novel was the ending, which, along with many other readers, I found to be less than satisfying. The movie's ending may not offer anything drastically different, but once again, it's the details that matter, because the small adjustments really made the on-screen ending bring the themes of the movie home, highlighting the story's take on a toxic marriage and media that's equally just as toxic. Alright, I know you think I'm crazy, but hear me out on this one. The Fellowship of the Ring made all the right choices when it came to bringing the first part of this epic fantasy classic to the big screen. Look, I know there are hardcore fans of Tom Bombadil and singing out there, and I know not everyone was on board with the changes made to the characters, but even though I really do love the novel, I think the first movie has a slight edge over the first part of the book trilogy. It's one thing to read the songs in the book as you're absorbing the lore, and even then they're a little bit overwhelming, and it's a whole other thing to bring a film to a standstill multiple times. As for Tom Bombadil, that was easily my least favorite part of the novel, and for a story that takes a while to get going to begin with, this side quest was unnecessary. Beyond trimming down other scenes here and there, the most important positive change in my eyes is how the movie humanized a lot of the characters, particularly Gandalf and Aragorn. The movie also expanded Arwen's role, which is significantly smaller in the books, making her into a fleshed out, interesting character, and paid a lot more attention to her relationship with Aragorn, which is pretty much an afterthought in the book trilogy. I know Tolkien purists will disagree, but as far as storytelling goes, the Fellowship of the Ring movie does the first third of the epic just a little bit better. And don't even get me started on the joy of seeing this fantasy world visualized, because we will be here for hours. Yes, for my final pick, I'm including two of my all-time favorites instead of one, as both Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 are inspired by Philip K. Dick's sci-fi classic To Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. The novel and both of the films immerse the audience in a not-too-distant dystopian future that, among other things, involves androids referred to as replicants in the movies, which are nearly identical to humans. Neither of the films mirrors the novel faithfully, and while the first film is closer to the actual plot of the book, the second is closer to its themes and philosophy. While both movies ponder the question of what it means to be human or to have a soul and explore the idea of artificial intelligence, Blade Runner 2049 really delves deep into these ideas. As for the novel, it's an important sci-fi classic to be sure, but next to the movies, it feels too short and too cold. It's a fascinating read, but it leaves you wanting more from both philosophical and emotional perspectives. The movies provide these things to the viewers without oversimplifying or over-explaining. They're cinematic marvels that offer compelling stories as well as a lot of food for thought. They explore the world and the themes more thoroughly, but also make the audience care about the characters, taking the source material to the next level. I know I'm biased because the Blade Runner movies are among my all-time favorites, but they just might be the perfect sci-fi movies.